what's going on? Just about time for Halloween, so I wanted to do a little top 5 with what I believe are the top 5 best horror novels that I've read. I put a lot of thought into this. I originally wanted to do a deep dive in one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Thing. There are so many videos about it on YouTube. I end up getting into a rabbit hole of just watching those. I figured that sometime in the future I'll bring something together that really shows my appreciation for the film. Because The Thing, like I said, all-time favorite horror movie. One of my favorite sci-fi movies, just excellent. So I just want to give a quick shout out before I begin here. Starting off this list, number 5 is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulik. This is a pretty good thriller. I wouldn't say that none of these books exactly scared me, at least physically, some on an existential level, but this one I thought was it was really fascinating from the thriller perspective. Mallory Quinn is fresh out of rehab when she takes a job as a babysitter for Ted and Carolyn Maxwell. She is to look after their 5-year-old son, Teddy. Mallory immediately loves it. She has her own living space, goes out for nightly runs, and has the stability she craves. And she sincerely bonds with Teddy, a sweet, shy boy who is never without his sketchbook and pencil. His drawings are the usual fare: trees, rabbits, balloons. But one day, he draws something different. A man in a forest, dragging a woman's lifeless body. Then, Teddy's artwork becomes increasingly sinister, and his stick figures quickly evolve into lifelike sketches well beyond the ability of any 5-year-old. Mallory begins to wonder if these are glimpses of a long unsolved murder, perhaps relayed by a supernatural force. Knowing just how crazy it all sounds, Mallory, nevertheless, sets out to decipher the images and save Teddy before it's too late. So given the synopsis there, definitely pulls you in. You got the mystery, you've got the character who's trying to make sense of some things that are happening. Dots aren't exactly connecting, and that's one of the beauties about this book, is just kind of following Mallory with that ride of uncovering what's really going on. And I'm going to say a few times here with these books is the best way to make a favorite out of something for me when it comes to horror. You got to have a really good payoff. And that could be done in different ways, different avenues. It's not always the good guy winning, bad guy winning. It just needs to be something where it's like, it takes me out for a second, like, wow, almost like it's a well-constructed fight scene or like a well-orchestrated like scenario where it's like almost like an art with the way that the author is able to pull it off. And I would say that Hidden Pictures, once you get to that third act, I feel like they do it really, really well. So definitely check that one out. That's number 5. Coming in at number 4, Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So this one was another recent read. This and Hidden Pictures I read within the last couple years. This one I thought was excellent because I didn't really know what to expect. I'll read the synopsis here. Maybe it gives more than I remember, but we'll see. After receiving a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin begging for someone to save her from mysterious doom, Noemi Taboda heads to High Place, a distant house in the Mexican countryside. She's not sure what she will find. Her cousin's husband, a handsome Englishman, is a stranger, and Noemi knows very little about the region. Noemi is also an unlikely rescuer. She's a glamorous debutante, sorry, apologize for that pronunciation, and her chic gowns and perfect red lipstick are more suited for cocktail parties than amateur sleuthing. But she's also tough and smart, with an indomitable will, and she is not afraid. Not of her cousin's new husband, who is both menacing and alluring, not of his father, the ancient patriarch, who seems to be fascinated by Noemi, and not even of the house itself, which begins to invade Noemi's dreams with visions of blood and doom. Her only ally in this inhospitable abode is the family's youngest son. Shy and gentle, he seems to want to help Noemi, but might also be hiding dark knowledge of his family's past. For there are many secrets behind the walls of the High Place. The family's once colossal wealth and fated mining empire kept them from prying eyes. As Noemi digs deeper, she unearths stories of violence and madness. And Noemi, mesmerized by the terrifying yet seductive world of High Place, may soon find it impossible to ever leave this enigmatic house behind. So that kind of sums up a lot of the elements that you'll find while you're reading this. The way that everything transpires, I thought was excellent. So this might be a minor spoiler with this connection here, but that's only, I guess, if you've seen this movie the same way that I've seen it, and if you've read this book, you might make that connection. But In a positive way, this reminded me of the movie A Cure for Wellness, which I actually thought was a pretty solid movie, a pretty well done movie at that too. And I feel like these have some parallels, and those parallels work to both of their strengths. And if you've seen the movie and you've read this book, you might understand where I'm going with that. Don't want to spoil anything further than that. But Mexican Gothic, I thought, was an excellent tale. I definitely want to read more from Silvia Moreno Garcia. I currently have The Daughter of Dr. Moreau on my TBR, and I'm looking to get Silver Nitrate as well. Definitely check this author out too. Number 3, and also another number in this list, so don't hate me for it, but you got to include him, Stephen King. But number 3, I got The Shining. I was a big fan of the movie for a while. I read Doctor Sleep actually before I actually read this one, and I gotta say that the strengths of this book weren't even highlighted at all in the movie. As great as the movie was, I really wish that we could have had a movie that was a little bit more faithful, because there were some things with the character work here that I really appreciated. For instance, just the way that we kind of learn more about Jack and his upbringing, and just some instances that occurred prior to coming to the Overlook, and getting a little bit into his mind state, and just understanding that, like, he's not just a madman. Something's taking over him, and he's trying as hard as he can to prevent it from taking over. So it gives him this sympathetic angle that we did not get in the movie, unfortunately. And I thought that that was one of the greatest strengths of the book. And then also something the movie irritates me with to this day is what they did with Dick Halloran. Very upsetting that they sent him out like that, but in this book, luckily, it builds on the relationship between Dick and Danny, and it smooths so much better going from this book to Doctor Sleep, or even the movie of Doctor Sleep, because you still get a lot of that relationship in Doctor Sleep with those two. And I thought that the foundation of their relationship in this was awesome, and the way that Dick is kind of like this, he's not the hero per se, but he has a lot of great moments in the third act of The Shining that really made it one of my favorite books. I thought that King did an excellent job with Dick in this, and I think that, you know, you chase this one with Doctor Sleep and it's an excellent time. I would include Doctor Sleep, but I don't want to oversaturate my top 5 with Stephen King, even though he already embodies 2 rankings on this list. Coming in at number 2, Legion by William Peter Blatty. So I'm sure most of you horror buffs out there have seen Exorcist 3. I've seen it as well, much later than other people. Something to get you interested is, I would say, YouTube jump scare from Exorcist 3. Actually, you know what? Don't do that. Just watch the movie and then let yourself be set up for that. I wouldn't say that it jump scared me, but still, like, the orchestration, the choreography of that whole set piece. It's kind of the stuff that you see a little bit with the Insidious movies or other movies by James Wan, where it's like you take a jump scare and you coordinate it with a long take, almost like you're directing a theater play. And those are my favorite kinds of jump scares. And Exorcist 3, the movie, did that really well. But we're not talking about the movie, all right? We're talking about the book that it is mostly based on. So as you know, William Blatty was trying to adapt his novel here, Legion, but the studio was like, let's make it like Exorcist. And as you could see by the final picture, that you know, they shoehorned in some cameos and an exorcism, blah blah blah. Still a great movie, I love it. But the book here I thought was excellent. The musings and just the internal monologuing of Detective Kinderman was awesome. Sometimes just really funny, but other times, like, it reaches this level of absurdism that I really only see when I look into stuff by Albert Camus, or the guy that wrote Nausea and something about existentialism. I forgot his name. Jean-Paul something. But anyway, the musings I think are awesome. And I want to read you a quote here from Legion. "Every man that ever lived craved perfect happiness," the detective poignantly reflected. "But how can we have it when we know we're going to die? Each joy was clouded by the knowledge it would end. And so nature had implanted in us a desire for something unattainable? No, it couldn't be. It makes no sense. Every other striving implanted by nature had a corresponding object that wasn't a phantom. Why this exception?" the detective reasoned. "It was nature making hunger when there wasn't any food. We continue, we go on, thus death proved life. Yeah, I really loved the dialogue, whether with another person or within himself. That was probably the best thing. And I'm talking about a horror novel here, and I'm not even highlighting any of the horror elements. It's really the fact that we have these insights into the mind of Kinderman and just how unique those inner monologues are. And like I said, the fact that it teeters on absurdism, especially the fact that I didn't expect that, I really love that. And I think that Legion is something that is that should be read by everybody, especially so if you've seen Exorcist 3 but you haven't read the book. Definitely worth checking out. You might know what's going on. A lot of the things are similar, but just getting into the head of Kinderman in turn is getting you into the head of William Blatty. I think it's an excellent read, and honestly, one of my favorite horror novels of all time. Coming in at number 1, Stephen King's Revival. So Revival, you probably don't see in a lot of top lists. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you got a lot of fluff here. Stephen King, like he usually does, dives into that slice of life stuff with those characters and really doubles down on it. But my God, where this book goes and how it ends, it's probably the most bleak thing I have ever read in my life, which automatically catapults it to the top, because when I'm done with this book and it gives me an existential crisis and I start kind of like freaking out a little bit and I'm seeing traces of H.P. Lovecraft, I mean, that's just the perfect concoction for a book for me to love. And just like the previous entry, I'm going to give you a quote from it and just give you a little surface level of what Stephen King must have been thinking about as he was writing this. We came from a mystery, and it's to a mystery we must go. Maybe there's something there, but I'm betting it's not God, as any church understands him. Look at the babble of conflicting beliefs, and you'll know that. They cancel each other out and leave nothing. If you want truth, a power greater than yourselves, look to the lightning. 1 billion volts in each strike and temperatures of 50,000 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a higher power in that, I grant you. But here in this building, no. Believe what you want, but I tell you this, behind St. Paul's darkened glass, there is nothing but a lie. So yeah, if you haven't read Revival, I would say give it a shot, because it is fascinating where it goes and just how dark. So it's almost like Stephen King watched the ending of the Mist movie and saw how Frank Darabont took his ending and made it so much more bleak and depressing. And Stephen King was like, you know what? I got you, bro. I got you. And then he wrote this book, and whew, that shit was dark. And therefore, it's my top favorite horror novel of all time that I've read so far. Thank you for tuning in. Please check out these books. They're excellent, whether you get it in the book format, you get it in audiobook. Just please support these authors. Stephen King doesn't need it as much because, you know, he's got a lot of money, but definitely check these out. They're some of the best horror material we've gotten. I'm always looking for horror because that's the genre of books where it's like, I feel like it's hard to please me with horror, because when you watch a horror movie, you could look for brilliantly designed set pieces that culminate in a jump scare or something else spooky. There's a lot of artistry that could go in constructing a horror film, but when it comes to a novel, it's so much harder because you can't rely on jump scares. You have to get psychological, absolutely, but you also have to like make it fascinating enough, unique enough, where you walk away from that novel and you're like, wow, that shit was crazy. But also, you know, I'm freaking out right now. If you have any recommendations that you'd like me to check out, leave a comment, let me know, and have a great day.